Talk about a third quality, functional hypertrophy. Functional hypertrophy is that 20 to 40 seconds time under tension, that 4 to 6 rep range, that 75 to maybe upwards to 85%. It has that classification of functional because it focuses more on the sarcomere and the myofibril development, right? Increasing the cross-sectional muscle area as opposed to just creating swelling, which we'll talk about with hypertrophy. The other classification though is it's supposed to develop strength as much as it is supposed to develop the size of the muscle, right? That idea that all strength is always going to have some element of increasing the cross-sectional muscle area, and that's what functional hypertrophy really looks at. Whenever we're thinking of hypertrophy, whether it's functional hypertrophy or hypertrophy, it's still going to come down to one singular input, tension. And tension can come from a variety of forms, specifically creating some sort of contraction, and a large part of that's going to come from external load or the ability to externally load or absolute load. And the other part will come from physical work. And you think about both of those vectors, right? External load has this kind of output of trying to create mechanical breakdown of the muscle cell, right? We're just creating these ruptures along the sarcomere to change that muscle cell or that muscle fiber to grow, right? And a lot of times that's attributed to either cross-sectional or this vertical type of thing, so increasing the muscle belly, or longitudinal, where I'm trying to increase the amount of sarcomeres along that muscle cell. The other one will be metabolic stress, or just creating this swelling-like effect to create an overall endocrine response or something different. With functional hypertrophy, the default will be mechanical breakdown of the muscle cell, as well as this other idea of external load is probably going to be the best indicator of that. And there's a partial truth behind that if I have enough external load, that's going to be somewhat congruent with creating more tension until it's not. Because one of the things about high external load is your body's an incredible compensator. It will start to shift to center of mass and then try to find a mechanical advantage, right? So for instance, a back squat will push your butt back, or a deadlift will bend our knees. We'll find ways to finish the rep, and that might mean distributing that stress in the form of tension more globally as opposed to localized. So when you're thinking about functional hypertrophy, yes, external load and mechanical breakdown of the muscle cell is a foundational piece of that, but you also want to think about how do I keep localized tension, right? This idea that movement's not muscles, but muscles are the things we're trying to develop. So using exercise selection and variations of those exercises to create that tension in the right area. But the big issue is we're going to utilize external load, so we want to distribute that correctly. Range of motion is going to be your first. Right? If I can get a full range of motion of that joint, targeting a specific muscle group, my odds of creating tension in the right area go up. Position. If I have the correct position, meaning that my torso or my lower body is correctly proportioned, relatively speaking, to the targeted joint and muscle group that I'm trying to train, chances are I'm not going to shift mechanical advantage to a favorable thing to get the exercise completed, but keeping tension in the specific area I'm trying to target. The final one is feeling the muscle, right? And this could be a taboo concept for strength conditioning that's so pattern oriented. But what I would argue, the goal is to develop the size of the muscle cell through load, position, range of motion. We should feel that muscle, right? If I don't feel the targeted muscle group from the pattern I'm trying to develop, like a squat and quad, hamstring and hinge, a back exercise and feeling your lats, a chest exercise and feeling your chest, chances are we're not distributing tension where it needs to be, and we're not going to get the hypertrophy response that we're looking to get. So think about those three when we're thinking about functional hypertrophy amongst everything else we just talked about.